So my cookbook here, which I wrote a couple years ago, it has a dessert section where there's like chili crisp, peanut butter cookies, chili crisp, like sticky date cake, things like that. And it just, it just works. But I thought, to launch the product with ice cream would, almost show people the versatility of it to the point where like it shocks them and they're like, wow, okay, now I can maybe experiment more wildly with something that in the past they might have thought only could go on Chinese food. But so I wanted to broaden that and expand.
Welcome to Beyond the Board, where we break bread with some of the most interesting industry leaders. I'm Jason Buechel, CEO of Whole Foods Market, and I'm honored to host these in-depth conversations with some of the most innovative and impactful leaders in the food industry. Today, we're talking to Jing Gao, founder and CEO of Fly By Jing. Jing is an entrepreneur who is redefining how the world experiences Chinese cuisine. She's introduced authentic Sichuan flavors to a global audience and built one of the most exciting and fast-growing brands in the food industry. Jing, thanks for joining us on Beyond the Board. Fly By Jing products are so popular in our stores, and I'm excited to try what you've brought in for us today.
I'm excited to give you a taste of our newest products.
So what are these?
Okay, so I know you've already had all of our sauces, and
Yes.
this is actually a new innovation. So we've got noodles now. So when you think sauces, I think a natural pairing is noodles, and we're always thinking of like how do we make it more easy and accessible for people to try our flavors. And so when I met this factory, actually also in my hometown where we make everything, all of our sauces, in Sichuan. I was just like blown away by their quality of noodles. They are made over this like 72-hour process. It's like triple fermented. The dough gets really like chewy and you get that really nice like toothsome al dente texture, which I felt like was the thing that I really wanted from other noodles on the market, but I just never really could find that. So when we combined that with our sauces, I think it really just made a magical combination. So we have two flavors here. This is our sweet and spicy chili sauce noodles. This is our OG Sichuan chili crisp noodles. And we really wanted to create products that also just like speak back to our core sauces. And if people really enjoy these flavors, they can find, more of that. So please. Help yourself. Yeah.
How exciting. Can't wait to try this. Well, as you may know, I am a huge fan of the product. I do a lot of poke bowls. And so the chili crisp, both the OG, but the spicy.
The extra
spicy is so good. So that's my usual weekly moment with the product.
So this one is the sweet and spicy. So you can tell it's like the texture is like a real. Yeah.
Which is your favorite of the two?
I mean, I love the sweet and spicy, but I think, the OG always will have a special place for me. We actually also have a third one, which we haven't cooked today, but it is going to be our first non-spicy SKU as well. Okay. It's classic soy. So it's kind of like a riff on the famous like soy scallion, which is a very Shanghainese flavor profile. And it's a really balanced, like sweet and savory. But yeah, no spice because, we get that a lot. People are like, I'd love to try it, but I can't handle the heat. And then this way you can also add your own.
Yeah.
So that one is sweet and spicy. This is our OG. I think like what is really special about this as well is like all the ridges and the grooves that really just capture.
I love the texture of it.
Every bite.
Yeah, it's outstanding. So who really introduced you to sort of your like great food and sort of drew your interest in culinary?
Yeah. So I was born in Chengdu, which is the capital city of Sichuan province in China. And Chengdu is known as the food capital of China. So China already like being this incredible food country with like 5,000 years of culinary heritage and all these amazing regions of cuisines. Sichuan is of those known as like the most kind of flavor obsessed. And then Chengdu, the people of Chengdu are like a next level of food obsessed. And so I was born into that environment. Everybody was just like, the baseline standard was that you were a foodie. Like everybody has, their favorite hole in the walls around the city. And actually, there's a name for these hole in the walls. They're called fly restaurants. And that's the namesake for Fly By Jing, because I just wanted to evoke those, amazing flavors and the energy of fly restaurants, which are hole in the walls that are so delicious. They attract people like flies. So I think like being
Love it.
born in that environment and growing up around that, I think it was inevitable that I was like, drawn to food, to cooking, to flavor. But, I think it took a while for me to sort of reconnect with that after, growing up in the West, and then through a very roundabout way, finding myself back in China in my 20s. So, yeah, it's kind of like a full circle moment coming back there.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible, and these noodles are outstanding. I do have to say the OG also
Yeah.
has won my heart over here. I cannot wait to try these products and make them myself. One of the things that you may not remember, but when we first met at Expo West, you had given me a tip because I had talked to you about how big a fan of the product I was. I think I was telling you I was putting on my poke bowls quite a bit, and you said try it on ice cream,
Hmm.
which I've had a chance to do, and it was just amazing because who would have thought
Yeah.
bringing those two things together? How did you think of that, or what was sort of the idea behind
Yeah.
bringing this spice with one of the sweetest desserts?
Yeah, people are always so shocked when I say that, and then when they do try it, their eyes pop because it is actually so good. And it's actually it came from this sort of like internet trend in China several years ago, before like a couple years before I launched Fly By Jing. And it was this trend in China happening at the time called dark cuisine. And it was the idea that people on the internet were just like messing around with their food and doing like crazy sounding combinations that may taste um terrible, but also might be amazing. And so that was this trend that was happening. People were like combining more and more ludicrous things together. And one of those that I saw, which was like a Sichuan ice cream shop putting this chili oil, which is the ubiquitous hot sauce in China, on the ice cream. And it was such a shocking, thing to see. And then I was like reading people's reactions, like really positive. So I tried it myself. And I thought, for my launch in 2019 in the US, I wanted to, work with ice cream shops to do this because I knew that it would capture people's attention. People love ice cream. Everybody loves ice cream. And also, I think importantly for me, it was like a way to demonstrate the versatility of the product. Because chili crisp is not like other hot sauces that we have been used to seeing here, where it, usually adds like heat, but mainly heat. For us in Chinese food culture, chili crisp is this super dynamic, flavor enhancer. It's not just about heat, right? It's also about the texture, right? It's a kind of a very well-rounded, multi-dimensional sort of, experience. And so and that's why it is good on savory as well as sweet. So my cookbook here, which I wrote out a couple years ago, it has a dessert section where there's like chili crisp, peanut butter cookies, chili crisp, like sticky date cake, things like that. And it just works. But I thought, to launch the product with ice cream would, almost show people the versatility of it to the point where like it shocks them and they're like, wow, okay, now I can maybe experiment more wildly with something that in the past they might have thought only, could go on Chinese food. But so I wanted to broaden that and expand.
Love that, and now you've got my attention. Peanut butter,
Yeah.
chili crisp, two of my favorite ingredients, like in cookies. I'm gonna have to check out this
Mhm.
recipe now. Working in grocery and food is special to me because both my grandparents were dairy farmers. My dad was a cheesemaker. I was heavily involved in my family garden since I was very young. And you've had such an interesting career. You studied international relations and economics. You worked in technology and branding, and you became an expert in regional Sichuan cuisine. And you've opened restaurants. And you did all of this before launching Fly By Jing. What inspired sort of this career journey that you sort of took,
Yeah.
that ultimately led you to launching an amazing brand?
Yeah. I mean, I think for similar to a lot of founders, it was a very personal journey. I didn't sit down one day and like write a business plan. I'm gonna launch a chili crisp brand. That never happened. It was really like taking one step, putting one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, and like leading me to this. And I think what really inspired it was like the pursuit of um, self-expression, meaning of identity. Like that was topics that I was exploring when I was in my 20s and I found myself in China. So like I mentioned earlier, I was born in Chengdu, but because of my family's my dad's job, he was a professor. We moved around a lot. We moved to Germany, England, Austria, France, Italy, Canada, all before high school.
Wow.
And every year I've found myself in a new place, sometimes with a new language, immersed in a new culture. And as a kid, as you know, like the last thing you want to do is stick out. But I always stuck out. I was always like the only, person that looked like me. And so, I think in as a result, I tried to distance myself from my identity and tried to blend in. I'd even adopted a Western name. I was Jenny for most of my life. I don't know if you knew this.
I remember you sharing that one
Yeah.
other time.
Yeah. So from when I was 5 till like 33, I was Jenny. And I didn't really realize how much I was sort of doing that until in my 20s when I found myself in China, kind of accidentally because I landed there with an exchange program from my business school in Canada. And I just like was astounded by modern China and how incredibly dynamic and amazing and exciting everything was. But the food was what really got me. And I was like, whoa, this is Chinese food. Like, I'm Chinese and I didn't know this was Chinese food because what we are told is Chinese food in the West is so, its own thing, right? And like Chinese American food, it's evolved to be its own thing. And there's a place for that. But it's very different from, Chinese food in China. So I started to like dig into it, learning about this, culinary heritage that was so rich, so complex that no one knew about. And I wanted to share it. And so I started writing about it. I had a food blog. I started taking, celebrity chefs when they would come to China around to eat. For me, it started out as just like curiosity, but then it took on personal meaning as I sort of peeled back the layers of my own identity, my relationship to my family in China, and then eventually it was like a form of self-expression because after I trained, in Sichuan cooking with one of the master chefs of China, I started to, think about like how do I express something unique to my experience and my identity. And so that's how Fly By Jing came about. So it really was, and when it first came about, it was an underground supper club where I was cooking for, lots of diners from all over the world. I would do pop-ups in cities all over the world, traveling with my suitcases of Sichuan ingredients because those ingredients were so essential to the flavors that, most of these places I was going, you couldn't access these ingredients. And so, for me, it was like step by step before I realized, okay, there's actually a real opportunity here because I could see people's eyes light up when they tried the flavors. They loved it and it was a universal thing, but there was just no access. And, so then the sauces kind of came about as a result. So very kind of, roundabout way to arrive here. But, I think for me, it really stemmed from that very personal journey. You can't really separate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing. It's so enlightening, and I have to say, like, talking to so many entrepreneurs, like, oftentimes it's not a straight line.
Totally.
It's like one experience that leads to another, but sort of the early entrepreneurs or folks thinking about going into something, it's like they think it might just be a straight line. Oh, this is a product I'm going to go develop and go do this and this and this, and oftentimes it just ends up not being the case.
Yeah.
There are more than 8 unique Chinese culinary regions that are very different and from what many Americans think of as Chinese food. How is Fly By Jing helping evolve the American dining experience?
Yeah. So, our purpose statement at Fly By Jing is actually to evolve culture through taste by expanding palates and minds. I think that, through something as simple as a jar of chili sauce, like something as simple as, flavor, we can expand someone's palate and as a result, expand their mind, open their mind to possibilities of other, flavors, cultures, and also people. And then through that, we're evolving culture together. So I think, when we first launched, there were really no like modern Chinese food brands on the market. And I think for centuries actually in the West. There's been certain perceptions about Chinese food that really marginalized the cuisine and put it in a box where it couldn't evolve, right? I think like Chinese food in America came from a very specific moment in time. There was actually something called the Chinese Exclusion Act back in the 1800s, where as a whole ethnic group, Chinese immigrants were not allowed to come into this country. The only loophole that existed was something that literally was called the chow mein loophole, which was that if you had a restaurant or a laundromat, you could come to this country as a Chinese person. And so Chinese restaurants proliferated from there. And today it is, probably arguably the most popular cuisine in America, given that there's 50,000 Chinese restaurants, which is more than McDonald's, Taco Bell, Starbucks, everything combined. But it's also evolved into its own thing, right? And it necessarily had to be cheap because that's what people demanded. And so those restaurateurs who needed to survive had to adapt and use local ingredients and cheapen the ingredients in order to make it affordable. And so along the way, it got a certain rep. And, I think that's something that I was facing when we first launched. There was a lot of resistance to like a premium Chinese food product. People thought that that had no right to exist, right?
Yeah.
And what I wanted to show was not only, is there, is this a premium product that commands premium because of its like incredible ingredients that, literally are so rare even in China that like, a Michelin level chef would be able to access it only. Not only that, like it also is a very specific thing. Our tagline is not traditional, but personal. And that was also a result of like when we launched, there were people that said, well, this doesn't taste like my grandmother's chili sauce. So therefore, it must not be real Chinese. And, I think we've all been so colored by our narrow set of experiences. And that's because of lack of exposure, right? And so the more exposed you are to more things, the more you realize there's actually a world of flavor out there. And all of those flavors deserve to exist. And so even we actually have a new branding system now, but the old branding had a Venn diagram that said Sichuan people and everyone else. And in the middle, it said, this tastes different. And that was inspired by the first time I shared the flavors with my family in Sichuan. And, this is a product that is fully sourced, crafted in Sichuan using Sichuan ingredients. So it really tastes specifically of the region. But it's also done in a way that like is unique to my point of view because I was born there, but I grew up all over the world. I trained with chefs all over. Like I wanted to create something unique. And so even in Sichuan, like my family, they tasted it and they were like, oh, this is good, but it's different. Like we've never tasted anything like this. So that's just to show that, there's literally thousands of ways that you can create, flavor combinations with something as simple as chili crisp. And there's a place for all of that. And I think that's kind of like the biggest thing that, we've been working on and trying to establish within the food culture here and to kind of show that, we're not a monolith and there's space for diversity to exist even within Chinese food.
Yeah. So great. How was your partnership with Whole Foods Market impacted your business, would you say?
It's been like essential to our existence and our growth. Whole Foods was our first retailer. And I don't know if you know this, but our first buyer was Bill Gwynn from the Mid-Atlantic region. And he actually reached out because he was one of our initial Kickstarter backers. So he and his
I
wife.
didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah, I didn't know either until recently. And so that's how he found out about the product. He was kind of, really loved it. And then he started emailing me and, I met him in his office. And at the time I was like, we're not ready. Like I was the only person working on the brand at the time. And I knew that I needed to strengthen our supply chain and everything. So it actually took two more years, until 2021 before we were finally ready. And yeah, you guys have been our first retail partner and essential to, people's discovery of our flavors. We've been national with you guys for since pretty much the beginning. And every time someone asks, like, where can I find you? I always say Whole Foods because I know we're in every single Whole Foods, they will find us. And I think also your dedication to, you know, invigorating the ethnic aisle or the international aisle with energy by bringing in other brands like ours that, together we're all rising tide lifts all boats. It really is the case because now the Asian aisle has become the destination aisle for people to look for emerging brands like ours. And, I think it's definitely set the tone and a trend industry wide for what's possible with, ethnic flavors.
Yeah, well, I know we have a lot of passionate team members who love this product as well. So for them, sharing their experiences with it and talking to our customers about it is always great. And I know that they will love these new noodles coming to a store near them soon. As part of my job, protecting the future of our food systems is always top of mind. With the way that food is farmed and produced today, some of our favorite products, as we know them, and we know and love, may not be available for future generations. Sustainability, I know, is one of Fly By Jing's core values. Can you tell us a little bit about what the sustainability goals are that you have within the business?
I think, luckily, I think we've been really focused as we've grown to really take responsibility like across the whole supply chain. We have actually um, last year was like a really landmark year for us to making the prices more accessible as well. We actually dropped our prices by almost 30% across the market. And that was a result of like really finding sustainable options, in packaging. We're really proud of the fact that our packaging is like all glass and, plastic free. And we have also reduced our like just corrugate and everything across the board by significant amount. I think that's been a big focus for us. We also have been really proud to, work on sustainability, social responsibility and sustainability as well. I think with our partners in China, we've helped them to, for the very first time, you know, create a lot of like, social audit standards.
Thanks for sharing a little bit of the insight around your sustainability goals. It's one of those areas where I can definitely tell our core values are really aligned between the two organizations. Are you ready for some lightning round questions?
Let's do it.
All right. If you could only eat one dish the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. Um, It'll probably be mapo tofu. Are you familiar with that dish? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like my favorite dish ever, and I could never get sick of it. So comforting. There's a good recipe for that in here.
Outstanding. I will check it out. What ingredient do you always reach for first?
The chili crisp.
Good answer. It was no trick. What daily habit keeps you grounded?
Meditation.
Very nice. Besides your phone, what's one thing you always have with you?
Um, ooh, what's one thing? I think conscious breath. Like that's, just remembering to breathe. That's the only there's no other material thing I would have with me.
Outstanding and something we always need.
Yeah. Yeah. But we forget sometimes.
We do. We do. Well, what is your superpower?
Ooh. I think I I think one of the things that I've become good at is like kind of seeing the potential of something before many others do. Yeah.
That's great. Well, you clearly have done that with all the amazing offerings you have here. And what's next for Fly By Jing?
Well, we are excited to continue to sustainably grow and, become more and more available, accessible to more and more people in America, I think, and around the world. We are just getting started. It's only been 5 or 6 years. And, I think we're just, especially with our new innovations, we're just really at a cusp and, excited to continue to evolve culture through taste and, really kind of, yeah, lead the charge along with our peers in terms of like evolving, the ethnic aisle for good and yeah, just expanding more and more palates and minds.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us today, Jing and really, really appreciate you sharing these amazing products of Fly By Jing with all of our listeners. I've really enjoyed our Beyond the Board conversation today and appreciate your dedication for the future of food and the quality ingredients and ultimately helping enhance our palates and bring in new and exciting products to the market. Fly By Jing products are available to celebrate the Chinese cuisine that is full of complexity and authenticity, and her work as transforming cultural and culinary perceptions. Thank you so much
Thank you
for
very much for
joining
having me.
us today.